If only I had known that the wallet lying beside my car that night would change my life forever, I might have stared at it longer before picking it up. The wind pushed cold air across the grocery store parking lot as I walked toward our old car with a small paper bag of food. Inside the bag were noodles, bread, and a carton of milk. It wasn't much, but it was what I could afford. Liam walked beside me, kicking a loose pebble across the pavement. "Mom, can we get cereal next time?" he asked. I smiled softly. "Next time." When we reached the car, something dark near the tire caught my eye. A black leather wallet. It looked expensive. I bent down and picked it up slowly. Liam leaned closer. "Someone dropped it?" "I think so." The leather felt heavy in my hands. When I opened it, my breath stopped. Thick stacks of cash filled the inside. More money than I had seen in months. Maybe more than my rent. For a moment, the parking lot felt silent. Liam looked up at me. "Mom." His voice was quiet. "Are we keeping it?" My heart started beating faster. I sat inside the car with the wallet resting in my lap. The heater hummed softly while Liam watched me from the back seat. I opened the wallet again. The cash was real. Thick bundles of bills filled the pocket. Just one stack could fix so many problems. Rent. Groceries. Liam's school supplies. I closed the wallet quickly. "Whose is it?" Liam asked. "There's an ID inside." I pulled it out carefully. The card showed a man with calm, serious eyes. His name read Adrian Wolf. The address printed below wasn't far from here. Liam leaned forward between the seats. He must be rich. I gave a small laugh. Looks that way. For a moment, I imagined driving home and pretending I had never found it. No one would know. But the thought felt wrong immediately. My mother used to say something when I was little. Doing the right thing is hardest when no one is watching. I started the car. "Where are we going?" Liam asked. "To return it." He nodded. "Good." The address on the ID led us to a quiet street near a small cafe. Warm light glowed through the windows. Inside, a few people sat drinking coffee. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The smell of fresh coffee filled the room. At a corner table, a man sat alone reading something on his phone. When he looked up, I immediately recognized him. The same face from the ID. Adrian Wolf. My footsteps slowed as I walked toward him. "Excuse me," I said gently. He looked up. "Yes." I placed the wallet on the table. "I believe this belongs to you." His eyes moved from the wallet to my face, then back to the wallet. Slowly, he opened it. For a moment, he said nothing. He checked the cash inside. Every bill was still there. When he looked up again, his expression had changed. "You found this?" he asked. "In a grocery store parking lot. You didn't take anything." "No." He studied me quietly for a few seconds. "You could have." "I know." A small silence passed between us. Then he said something unexpected. "Thank you." When Liam and I stepped outside the cafe, the evening air felt colder. "Did he say thank you?" Liam asked. "Yes." "That was nice." We walked back toward the car. Inside the cafe, Adrian still sat at the table. But he wasn't drinking his coffee anymore. He was watching us through the window. Something thoughtful rested in his eyes. Because the truth was something I didn't know. The wallet had not been lost. Adrian had dropped it on purpose earlier that day. It was a test. For months, he had been searching for someone he could trust. Someone honest. And in a quiet grocery store parking lot, he had just found that person. Outside, Liam climbed into the car. "Mom." "Yes. You did the right thing." I smiled at him. "I hope so." As I started the engine, I had no idea that moment was only the beginning. Our apartment building looked tired when we arrived home. The hallway light flickered as we climbed the stairs. Inside the apartment, the rooms were small but warm. I placed the groceries on the table while Liam turned on the television. Dinner would be noodles again. As the water boiled, someone knocked loudly on the door. My stomach tightened immediately. I already knew who it was. When I opened the door, Derek Shaw stood in the hallway with his usual serious expression. "Our landlord." "Rent is late again," he said. "I know," I replied quietly. "I'll have it soon." "You said that last week." I'm working extra shifts. He crossed his arms. Listen carefully. I can't keep waiting forever. I nodded. I understand. If the rent isn't paid soon, he continued, you'll need to find somewhere else to live. Behind me, Liam stood silently near the kitchen. When the landlord left, Liam asked softly, Mom, are we in trouble? I knelt beside him. No, I said gently. But inside, I wasn't so sure. The next afternoon, I was folding laundry when someone knocked on the door again. This time the knock sounded calm, not impatient. And I was wondering why the landlord had suddenly become gentle with me. When I opened the door, I froze. Adrian Wolf stood in the hallway. He looked just as composed as he had in the cafe. Behind him, through the stairwell window, I noticed 2 black cars parked outside. 2 men in suits waited beside them. For a moment, I simply stared. What are you doing here? I asked. I hope I'm not interrupting, he said politely. How did you find my address? The grocery store security cameras recorded you finding the wallet. I crossed my arms slightly. So you tracked me down? I wanted to thank you properly. Liam peeked around my arm. Mom, it's the wallet man. Adrian smiled softly. Yes, it is. He looked back at me. May I come in? Something about his calm voice made me step aside. All right, I said. Come in. Adrian stepped inside slowly, looking around the small apartment. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean. This is Liam, I said. Adrian nodded politely. Nice to meet you. Liam stared at him curiously. Are you rich? I nearly laughed. Adrian smiled. Some people say so. We sat at the small kitchen table. So, I said, why are you really here? Adrian folded his hands together. I came to thank you. You already did. Not properly. He studied me again, with the same thoughtful look. You returned a wallet with a large amount of money. Yes. You needed that money. His words surprised me. How do you know? I can see it, he said simply. I didn't answer. Adrian continued quietly. Most people would have kept it. Maybe. But you didn't. No. He leaned back slightly. That tells me something important. What? That you're honest. I gave a small shrug. That shouldn't be surprising. Adrian smiled. You would be amazed how rare it is. Before leaving, Adrian paused near the door. There's something I'd like to ask you, he said. I crossed my arms again. What? I'm starting a foundation. A charity? Yes. To help families who struggle with housing, food, and school supplies. My eyebrows lifted slightly. That sounds important. It is. He looked at me carefully. I need someone I can trust to help me build it. You have employees for that. Yes, he said. But trust is harder to hire. I frowned. What are you suggesting? Adrian spoke calmly. I would like you to help me. I blinked in surprise. Me? Yes. I work 2 jobs. That doesn't matter. You barely know me. I know enough. How? Adrian's answer came simply. You had a chance to take thousands of dollars. And I didn't. Exactly. The room grew quiet. You want me to work for your foundation? I said slowly. Yes. I looked at Liam, then back at Adrian. That's a very strange job offer. Adrian smiled slightly. Sometimes the best opportunities begin in strange ways. That night, I barely slept. Adrian's offer kept replaying in my mind. A billionaire asking a struggling single mom to help run a foundation sounded impossible. At breakfast, Liam asked the question I had been avoiding. Are you going to work with him? I don't know. He seems nice. Not all nice people are really nice, Adrian, and we don't know him really well. Later that day, a message arrived with an address. Adrian's office. I wasn't sure if I should go. What if he wanted something more? I was thinking to myself. After my afternoon shift, curiosity pushed me to go. The building towered above the city like glass and steel reaching toward the sky. Inside, everything looked polished and expensive. A receptionist greeted me politely. Do you have an appointment? Yes, I said nervously. Adrian Wolf. Her expression changed immediately. Of course. She guided me to a private elevator. When the doors opened, Adrian stood near a large window overlooking the entire city. "I'm glad you came," he said. I looked around the enormous office. "You really are rich," I murmured. Adrian laughed softly. "That's not the most important thing." Adrian handed me a folder filled with plans. "These are the early designs for the foundation," he explained. I flipped through the pages slowly. Housing support, food programs, school supply donations. "You're planning something very big," I said. "Yes." "Why do you want to do this?" I asked. Adrian paused before answering. "When I was younger, someone taught me something important." "Who?" "My nanny." That surprised me. "She didn't have much money," he continued, "but she cared deeply about people who struggled." "What happened to her?" "She made me promise something." "What?" "That if I ever had the power to help others, I should." I closed the folder. "So this foundation is your promise?" "Yes." Adrian looked at me again. "And I believe you can help me keep it." Over the next few days, I began visiting communities with the foundation team. We spoke with families who needed housing help. We met parents struggling to buy school supplies. Every story felt familiar, because not long ago, I had been in the same position. Adrian often joined the visits, but he usually stayed quiet, watching carefully. One afternoon, we visited a community center filled with children. A little girl struggled to tie her shoe. Without thinking, I knelt to help her. When I looked up, Adrian was watching. "You understand them," he said later. "I am one of them." He shook his head gently. "You're more than that." I smiled. "I'm just someone who knows how hard life can be." Adrian nodded thoughtfully. "And that's exactly why this foundation needs you." Even as things improved, small doubts sometimes, why me? Nad back in the office, they always talked about me. One afternoon, I overheard two employees whispering in the hallway. "She met him once and suddenly works beside him." That kind of luck doesn't happen. Their words stung more than I expected. Later that evening, I stood by the office window thinking about it. Maybe they were right. Maybe I didn't belong here. Adrian entered the room quietly. "You look troubled," he said. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About whether I deserve this opportunity." He looked surprised. "Why wouldn't you?" "I'm not experienced like the others." Adrian shook his head. "Experience can be learned." "What can't be learned?" "Character." His words stayed with me long after he left the room. A few days later, Adrian asked about my living situation. "How are things at home?" he asked. I hesitated before answering. "We are late on rent." "Wow, why didn't you ever mention it?" Adrian said. "You're working very hard. You don't have to struggle like that." I smiled slightly. "Life doesn't change that quickly." Adrian looked at me thoughtfully. "Sometimes it does." As I left the office that evening, I also left with the check to pay my landlord and make life better for my Liam and I. I can now buy cereal for Liam and eat barbecue ribs and potatoes for dinner. Then I realized something. Only a week earlier, I had been counting coins in a grocery store parking lot. Now I was helping plan programs that could change hundreds of lives, and my own life is also changing. And somehow it all started with a simple choice: returning a wallet. But something told me the biggest change was still coming. The idea for the foundation's first big event came to me late one night while Liam was doing his homework at the kitchen table. If the foundation was meant to help families like ours, then people needed to feel welcome. Not judged. Not pitted. They needed to feel understood. The next morning, I walked into Adrian's office with a notebook full of plans. "I think we should hold a community event," I said. He looked up from his desk. "What kind of event?" "Food stations, school supplies, children's activities, and help desks for housing support." Adrian leaned back in his chair. "You planned all that already?" "Yes." I handed him the notebook. He read through the pages quietly. Volunteer schedules, supply lists, community invitations. When he finished, he looked at me with clear surprise. "You thought this through carefully. These families deserve something organized and respectful." Adrian nodded slowly. "When would this happen?" "In 2 weeks." He smiled slightly. "Then it looks like I have an event to attend." The next 2 weeks became the busiest days I had experienced in years. Every afternoon after work, I visited the community center where the event would take place. Volunteers helped carry boxes of donated food and clothing inside. Tables were arranged across the gym floor. Children's activity corners were prepared with coloring books and games. Liam came with me almost every day. At first, he simply watched the volunteers work. But soon he wanted to help. "Can I do something?" he asked one afternoon. "You can sort the colored pencils," I said. He took the job very seriously, carefully placing them into small bags for the children. Watching him made me smile. Just a few weeks earlier, I had been worried about buying groceries. Now my son and I were helping prepare supplies for hundreds of families. When the final boxes arrived, I stepped back and looked around the room. This event was more than a project. It was proof that kindness could grow into something bigger. The morning of the event arrived with bright sunlight pouring through the community center windows. Volunteers hurried across the gym, setting up the final tables. Families had already started gathering outside. Liam stood beside me wearing a small foundation badge. "Do I look official?" he asked. "Very official," I said. Soon a black car pulled up near the entrance. Adrian stepped out. He paused for a moment, looking at the building filled with activity. "You organized all of this?" he asked. "With help from the volunteers." Inside, the gym buzzed with energy. Children laughed near the activity tables. Parents spoke with volunteers about housing and school support. Food boxes lined one entire wall. Adrian walked slowly through the room beside me. Everywhere we went, people thanked the volunteers. He remained quiet, observing everything carefully. Finally, he said something softly. "You turned an idea into something real." I smiled.
No.
We turned it into something real. As the event continued, I moved from table to table helping families sign up for support programs. Liam had already made several new friends. Soon he was sitting on the floor with a group of children helping them open art kits. I watched him laugh with them. For a moment, I forgot about everything else. Adrian stood nearby observing quietly. After a while he spoke. "You and Liam belong here. These people are just like us," I replied. Adrian nodded slowly. She didn't have much money, but she cared deeply about people who struggled. "Your nanny?" I asked.
Yes.
"And she would be very happy we did this. She passed a few years ago, still helping people." He looked around the busy gym feeling content. The event lasted most of the afternoon. Families received food boxes, school supplies, and information about housing programs. Some parents looked relieved. Others looked emotional. One mother hugged me tightly after receiving backpacks for her children. "You don't know how much this helps us," she said. I squeezed her hand gently. "I do know. Because not long ago I had been in the same position." Across the room, Adrian watched quietly. When the last families began leaving, the gym slowly grew calmer. Volunteers started packing empty boxes. Adrian walked over to me. "You made this possible," he said. "I only organized it." "No," he replied. "You gave this foundation its heart." His words surprised me. "I always wanted to give back to society," Adrian continued. "But large organizations often make things complicated. So, you needed someone who understood the people?" He nodded. "You made it easier for me to fulfill the promise I made years ago." For the first time that day, I realized how proud he looked. The success of the event spread quickly. Local news stations mentioned the foundation. More volunteers offered their help. Even inside the office, the tone had changed. I still heard whispers sometimes, but they sounded different now. She organized the whole event. Families really trust her. Instead of doubting me, people were starting to understand. One afternoon, Adrian stopped by my office. "You handled everything extremely well," he said. "I had good volunteers." He smiled. "You also had leadership." I leaned back in my chair. Honestly, it still feels strange. What does? Just a month ago, I was worried about rent. And now I'm helping run programs that support hundreds of families. Adrian nodded thoughtfully. Life changes when the right person steps into the right opportunity. I looked at him. "You still think I'm the right person?" "I know you are." A few days later, Adrian asked if I could meet him somewhere special. "A restaurant downtown," he said. When I arrived that evening, the place glowed with warm lights and quiet music. Large windows overlooked the city. Adrian stood when I reached the table. "This place is beautiful," I said. "I thought you deserved somewhere nice." We ordered dinner and talked about the foundation's future. But I could tell he had something important on his mind.
"You've been quiet," I said.
"I've been thinking." "About what?" "How much the foundation has grown already." I nodded. "So have I." Adrian leaned forward slightly. "Do you remember the first day we met?" "How could I forget?" "You returned a wallet full of cash. And now we're here." He smiled softly. "That moment told me something important about you." "What?" "That your character is stronger than your circumstances." Dinner arrived, but Adrian still seemed thoughtful. "The foundation will continue growing," he said. "That's the goal. But growth brings responsibility." "I know." He looked at me seriously. "That's why I asked you to meet tonight." I folded my hands on the table. "All right. What's on your mind?" Adrian took a slow breath. "The event you organized proved something important." "What did it prove?" "That the foundation needs more than funding." "What does it need?" "Leadership with compassion." I smiled slightly. "You already have that." Adrian shook his head.
"No."
"I have resources." "You have something different." "What?" "The ability to connect with people honestly." The restaurant lights reflected softly across the table. And suddenly the conversation felt much more serious than before. Adrian reached into his jacket and placed a folder on the table. "What's this?" I asked. "An offer." I opened the folder carefully. Inside were several official documents. My eyes widened as I read the first page. "Adrian, it's a leadership agreement for the foundation." "You want me to run it?" "Yes." I stared at him. "That's a huge responsibility." "You're already doing the work. But this would make it permanent." "That's the idea." I looked down at the papers again. Just a few weeks ago, I had worried about paying rent. Now I was being asked to lead a growing foundation. "But there's more," Adrian said. "What do you mean?" "This position wouldn't make you an employee." I looked up again. "What would it make me?" Adrian answered quietly. "My partner." For a moment, I couldn't speak. "Partner?" I repeated. "Yes." "You're serious?" "Completely." I shook my head slowly. "You built everything." Adrian smiled gently. "I built the structure. But you gave it purpose." I thought about the event, the families, the children laughing with Liam. Everything had changed so quickly. "This would change my whole life," I said. "That's exactly why I'm offering it." "Why me?" "Because the foundation represents your values just as much as mine." The room felt very quiet. "I believe we can help far more people together than either of us could alone," Adrian said. I looked down at the documents again. From struggling to pay rent, to becoming a partner in something meaningful. The journey felt impossible. Yet somehow, it also felt right this time. Then it hit me, good things still happen to good people, and I am happy I took the offer to work with Adrian. That night, I returned home deep in thought. Liam sat on the couch watching cartoons. "Mom, how was dinner?" he asked. "Interesting." "That means something big happened." I sat beside him and explained Adrian's offer. His eyes widened. "He wants you to be his partner?" "Yes." "In the foundation?" "Yes." Liam smiled proudly. "That's amazing." "You think so?" "Of course." "Why?" "Because you always help people." I hugged him tightly. "You helped too," I said. "With the event." "That was fun." Mom, Liam said at least we could trust him. "I am happy we did, Liam," I answered. I looked around our small apartment. Only weeks earlier, I had feared losing it. Now I had the chance to build something much bigger. "Should I accept?" I asked. Liam nodded confidently. "Good people should do big things." Sometimes children understand the world better than adults. And in that moment, I knew my answer. The next evening, I returned to the restaurant. Adrian stood when I approached the table. "You decided," he said. "Yes." I placed the signed documents in front of him. "I accept." For the first time since we met, Adrian looked genuinely relieved. "Welcome, partner." Over the following months, the foundation expanded across the city. More families received help. More children returned to school with supplies and hope. One evening, Adrian and I stood outside the restaurant looking at the city lights. "Funny how everything started," I said. "With a wallet," he replied. I shook my head gently.
No.
"With a choice." Adrian smiled. "You're right. Sometimes doing the right thing feels small in the moment. But sometimes that small choice opens doors you never imagined. And sometimes it leads you exactly where you were meant to be, in the arms of the one who sees ability and strength in you." "Marry me and make me the happiest man in the world," he said. I answered, "We are partners already. Have you forgotten?" He laughed and said, "Of course, partners for life." I never thought my life could ever change. Good things still happen to good people indeed. 5 years later, we now have 2 more children. And we are always at charity events together. My life could not have been better.